I'd like to take a minute to remind everyone about the rules of this proceeding. This proceeding is at all times governed by the rule of procedure adopted by the board on May 26, 2011, last amended on March 9, 2020. A copy of the rules of procedure is available for review in the back of the room and online. All those planning to testify today, which does not include those solely making arguments such as attorney, should please stand now and take an oath administered by the board's attorney.
Well, raise your right hand if you're going to provide any testimony here today. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
This is a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, the board reserves the right to deliberate in private. The Ohio rules of evidence do not apply to this hearing. However, professional rules of conduct do apply, and candor to the tribunal is required. The board members are citizen volunteers and are not paid for their service. They are treated as public officials under Ohio law. Any attempt to influence them, including but not limited to bribery, intimidation, and retaliation, which may include contacting their employer in an attempt to exert influence, is punishable as a crime. All should be aware that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, before you begin your comments, please state your name and address for the record. With that said, let's proceed with the first item. We actually have 3 items on the consent agenda. Would anyone care to make a motion to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? Is there anyone here in opposition to items 1, 2, or 3 who would like an opportunity to be heard? Hearing none. We can rule on the consent agenda. I think we can do all 3 at once, or do you want them individual for the record?
Let's do individual.
Let's do individual. So on item number 1, I will entertain a motion for 211 West 4th Street.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll. Mr. Zalasko.
Aye.
Ms. Dobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Item number 1 has passed. Is there a motion regarding item number 2, 1524 Republic Street?
So moved.
Second.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Zalasko.
Aye.
Ms. Smith Dobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Item number 2 has passed. Is there a motion regarding approval of item number 3, 127 Green Street?
Make a motion.
Second.
I will call the roll. Mr. Zalasko.
Aye.
Ms. Smith Dobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. That's the end of the consent items. Item number 3 passed as well. On to item number 4, Mr. Owen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 4 is an application for certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief for 251 West 5th Street and 240 West 4th Street. This is an existing surface parking lot located between 4th and 5th, stretching between that entire block, with the Wex garage on the east and the convention center located to the north. It is in the West 4th Street Historic District, and it is new infill construction. So it does require a certificate of appropriateness for the new construction, and there is also zoning relief required for a special exception to reduce the ground floor transparency from the required 60% along West 4th Street, as well as a dimensional variance of 6.5 feet for a street level wall sign, approximately 10 feet in height, which exceeds the 3.5-foot height limit of the zoning code. So in way of background, this is a current condition of the existing surface parking lot occupying the entire block between 4th and 5th Street, leading up to the convention center on the north, which is currently undergoing renovations. The applicant is proposing to redevelop the surface parking lot with a new hotel that will feature 700 rooms, as well as associated interior meeting space, as well as other amenities. It will have ground floor commercial space at the ground level that will include some restaurants and retail uses both along the 5th Street frontage as well as the 4th Street frontage. On Plum Street, there will be a vehicular motor court and a pedestrian lobby that will allow for vehicles to move off of the street when checking into the new hotel. The building will have a podium-based structure of approximately 6 stories. Those 6 stories are primarily amenity space as well as the meeting rooms and other associated event type spaces. And above the podium section, there will be a tower which will house the majority of the guest rooms. So the West 4th Street facade is the area that is part of the historic district. The historic district boundary, actually on this lot, it does follow through the entire parcel. It is on the edge of the boundary. So the West 4th Street facade is where the majority of the historic detailing is located, as this is the elevation that is most closely associated with the historic district, considering that the rest of this lot is vacant and the convention center is located on the north, and that is outside the historic district. The applicants have been working with staff for several months on refining the design and the massing of this building to better conform with the conservation guidelines, and have made some substantial renovations to better comply with those guidelines. So the 6-story base portion of the building is primarily masonry construction. It will be a modular brick that will be the primary material on this facade. There are large window openings spaced regularly across this facade, and large storefront openings at ground level extending upward. There is a portion of a fairly blank wall on the western end of the building, and this area does house an interior staircase, which is not able to have those window openings that would carry on that rhythm. So the applicant has broken up that blank facade somewhat with a metal panel system that runs vertically, and then the edge piece of the structure will be more of that same brick masonry. As far as the form of the building is considered, in staff's opinion, the form does substantially meet the context of the historic district as well as the conservation guidelines. It is built primarily to the lot lines. It's built actually to the lot line on the 4th Street as well as the Plum Street facades. The 5th Street elevation will have some minor setbacks along 5th Street, which is directly across from the convention center, and that will allow them to have some pedestrian-oriented amenity areas that are related to the restaurants along the street front along 5th Street. So occupying, the majority of this parcel, staff feels that that is in concert with the guidelines. As far as the overall height is concerned, the conservation guidelines have the 4th Street district broken up into a sort of a block by block way to configure the height in the district. In this particular block between Plum and Elm Street, it does recommend a minimum of 3 stories and a maximum of 10 stories. Obviously, this building is overall taller than 10 stories, with the upper portion of the building being approximately 264 feet from grade. However, the building is broken up with the primary street frontage being occupied by the podium of the tower. And that podium is 6 stories in height, which falls within that 3 to 10 foot range. So the tower extends up above the western portion of the building to gain that additional height that is needed for the rooms that will occupy this hotel. So the guidelines are somewhat flexible on this height regulation, stating that while new construction should adapt to the specific site considerations, to each owner's individual needs, and to the particular design features of nearby buildings. So staff feels that with the desired use of this vacant parcel for the primary hotel that is related to the convention center, a maximum of a 10-foot height for the overall building would not be feasible. So staff appreciates the way that the applicants have paid special attention to the podium section of that building to have that first 6 stories, the masonry material and fitting within that height regulation, and then allowing just that western third of the building essentially to have that additional height for the tower. It is somewhat separated along the top. There is a primarily glass elevation that runs between the podium and the taller tower to provide some separation between the two. So staff feels that the overall form of the building, including its massing and height, does substantially comply to the guidelines. The building does have all of the major parts of the facade that are outlined in the guidelines. The ground floor storefront areas are provided through these large glass entries, which the guidelines do call for expansive amounts of glass in the storefronts. That storefront is multiple stories high with the additional glass provided on the story above. And that is fitting with other examples that are found on contributing buildings in the district, which often have multiple story base sections. So staff feels that that is appropriate on this building. The middle section with the windows that are provided, it does maintain a vertical emphasis as well as a regular pattern of those openings spaced about every 25 feet between these columns, which is what the guidelines call for. There is some separation within the glass from the floor assemblies that are beyond these windows to provide some breaks in these large vertical glass openings. And as far as the proportion of the window openings, generally, it does comply with the guidelines, although when you take a full percentage of the entire base section of the facade, it does fall somewhat short of the 50%, 50 to 75% range that the guidelines do call for. However, that's primarily related to the staircase enclosure and the lack of windows in that area that I had mentioned before. So when looking at just the primary portion of that building that does have these openings, it does fall within that 50 to 75% ratio. Moving around the building, the applicants did desire to have a building that complements the new work that is happening on the convention center. So you can see on the primary 4th Street elevations, this is primarily masonry cladding. It does have the metal panels and then the masonry columns between the proposed openings for the windows and the storefronts. I should mention the recessed metal panels here were done as part of a giant design choice that helps to allow the electric and utility meters on this building, which per Duke Energy were needed to be located on the 4th Street facade. So being on the 4th Street facade, staff had encouraged them to try to find a way to place those meters that would not be obtrusive or highly noticeable from the street. So the choice was made to place the meters on this facade, but install a metal screen product that is about 20 feet tall. That will be a decorative element that will hide the meters that are behind it, and the lines created from that metal screen are continued up with the metal paneling on the building. So as you wrap the corner onto the Plum Street elevation, it is still brick masonry for the majority of this elevation, continuing that same rhythm with the window openings on up Plum Street towards the north. So you can see the motor court entry will be located off Plum Street. There will be some low-level landscaping along these openings to help kind of separate that motor court from the pedestrian right-of-way along the sidewalk. And then as you extend further to the north, the building does begin to transition to more modern architecture, more of the glass and steel curtain wall construction as it approaches the convention center. So you get that on the corner of Fifth and Plum, and then wrapping that corner onto Fifth Street. That sort of more curtain wall construction continues along the Fifth Street facade. Staff is comfortable with this approach. Initially, the entire building had much more of the curtain wall construction, and at staff's urging, they did add that more of the masonry to better comply with those guidelines. So staff was willing to make the compromise that as it approaches the much more modern style convention center, and a transition of the building architectural vocabulary, it was appropriate to transition that to more modern materials on that elevation as well. So the historic district ends on this parcel, both to the north and the east. The Wex garage is located further to the east here. So there are not a lot of contributing buildings along this stretch of Fifth Street that will be significantly impacted by any of the more modern construction. The other thing to mention on the materials is while the podium section is primarily masonry and glass construction, the tower itself, once you get above the sixth floor, the tower will be more of an ephes cladding material on the tower. So ephes is a material that is not commonly recommended by staff for work in historic districts. However, considering the scale of this building and the location of where the ephes is proposed, staff is comfortable with how it is applied. The ephes does not appear on the primary facades along the podium section, and it does not begin until you get to the tower section, which is over 100 feet above grade. So the ephes material is not going to have a major impact on the district. And the choice for the ephes was also made in order to provide somewhat of a vibrant material choice on the tower. It will have a faceted facade on those ephes panels that will reflect the sun's rays and allow the sun to catch these ephes panels and create sort of a shimmer effect on the upper tower, which will provide some more visual interest than a typical flat ephes application would. Other than that, there is ephes on the east side of the building along Home Alley, which you can see here. There is a brick return that comes a substantial distance down the alley. So this section is brick cladding, and then it transitions to ephes panels once you are further into the alley. So considering the fact that this is on the alley facade and it is primarily blocked by the Wex garage, which is directly next to it, there will not be a lot of visibility towards that ephes material on this elevation as well. So, excuse me, staff does feel that is generally appropriate for a generally appropriate use of ephes within the historic districts. So you can see some of the details here on the primary facade materials. This is a representation of the metal panels that will screen the utility meters. There are 2 overhead doors that are proposed in the easternmost bays of that ground floor storefront. There are transformers that are placed in these areas, in these bays, so they will not have public access through these areas. And there are also louvers that are installed directly above the canopy here that will provide the ventilation that's needed for that mechanical space on the ground floor. So the louvers had previously been proposed for a much wider swath of this elevation, and the applicants have reduced those to being only in these areas over the overhead doors. So they will be largely they will be partially screened by the existing canopies below them. So staff feels that with the need for that mechanical ventilation and the way that they are installed, that is also an appropriate application. The glass itself will not be mirrored. It will have some tinting and reflectivity. There is less of that on the primary windows along that double story and some additional tintedness within that base section. And then continuing on up the tower, there will be more tinted window glass on the tower, but none of the glass will be reflective. The zoning relief that is required is primarily related to the same considerations that I spoke to before about the transparency of the proportion of glass to wall on the building. Again, the enclosed staircase area on the corner of the building reduces that overall transparency as that section of the building is not able to have those window openings. So staff feels that with the expansive amount of glass on that double story storefront, that it does have sufficient transparency along 4th Street to allow pedestrians to see into the building and provide that additional activity. So staff is comfortable with that variance. And then also the variance for the proposed sign at the corner of the building being larger than the 3.5 feet in height that is permitted by the zoning code, considering the scale of the building and the height of the sign above grade. Staff is comfortable with that as well. And it feels that it will not be overwhelming or distracting from the rest of the district. The full sign package has not yet been designed, so we don't have all the details on the signage, but there will likely be a similar sign in the similar location. Staff would recommend that the applicants follow the guidelines and not use internal illumination for any of the signage that's proposed on the building, but use either external illumination or halo lighting, backlighting to allow those to be better seen in the night hours. So staff, with that being said, would recommend the Historic Conservation Board take the following actions based on the plans by, and I apologize, I had GBBN Architects in the staff report. This is not GBBN. I apologize to the architects for that oversight. So the staff does recommend the board take the following actions based on the plans by Cooper Carey and Moody Nolan Architects dated 6/4/2025. Approve a special exception to reduce the ground floor transparency from the required 60% along West 4th Street. Approve a dimensional variance of 6.5 feet for a street level wall sign of 10 feet in height in excess of the 3.5 feet height limit. And approve a certificate of appropriateness for the new infill construction at 251 West 5th Street with the following conditions: that the 2 parcels that comprise this property shall be consolidated prior to the issuance of building permits, and the building permits must be issued within 2 years or the COA shall expire.
Thank you. I do have several folks signed up for this. I'm not sure who exactly is the applicant, but if you are an applicant and would like to speak on this item, please come forward and identify yourself.
Should I go here? Reed Scott, Vice President of Development with Portman Holdings, speaking on behalf of Cincinnati CHOH LLC, project owner. And we're 303 Peachtree Center Avenue, Atlanta, Georgia, 30342, if I'm following the guidelines up there. Just wanted to say thank you to Doug and the staff team for that great comprehensive overview and the work they've done with us on the process. I think clearly this is a unique economic development related project for the city of Cincinnati. It calls for unique considerations of what ultimately become very large box, and we've done a great job, I think, with the guidance of the Cooper Carey and Moody Nolan team that has joined us here today to try and create something we feel good about, fits within the context of the historic district, but also provides for what needs to be within the box and within the program to interact with the convention center and ultimately realize the ultimate goals of the city and county as we look to bring this project to life. We're excited about what we've been able to put together here. We hope the board is as well, and we're very appreciative of your consideration of our package and happy to field any questions about it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the applicant team that would like to speak on this item? Are there any questions by the board for the applicant or staff? I just want to make sure that I don't have any members of the public who would like to speak on this item. I'm assuming the Peachtree folks are the applicants. I do have a Katie Westbrook.
Hi, I'm with 3CDC. I don't have to speak, but if there are questions about the larger convention district, I'm happy to answer any.
Was anyone else hoping to speak on this item today? Okay, seeing no one, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness as laid out by staff
You get some zoning.
and the zoning, excuse me.
Second.
Call the roll. Mr. Zalesko.
Aye.
Ms. Smith-Dobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Congratulations. Okay, item number 5. Do we have the applicant present for item number 5? Okay. I don't think I have you signed in. Okay, Mr. Owen, this case has been continued from a meeting several times ago, and we have a board member who was not present. So first of all, is there a board member who would like to motion to reopen or reconsider this case from the last go-round?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll. Mr. Zalesko.
Aye.
Ms. Dobbins.
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. So Mr. Owen, if you wouldn't mind giving us a refresher on what happened last time, including the opposition that was present, we'll go from there.
So yes, this case was continued from the June HCB hearing. It is an application for a use variance for proposed commercial meeting facility use in the CCP-T zoning district at 1415 Republic Street in the Over the Rhine neighborhood. So the applicant had applied for this as a building permit back in 2022 to establish a commercial meeting facility. At that point, that permit was denied because commercial meeting facilities are not permitted in this district. So following the denial of the permit, the application was revised to a club and lodge use. And it included an operating statement noting that the building would be used by patrons that buy a membership for the club and lodge. And once someone is a member of the club and lodge, then they would be able to book the space for private events. So it would be required to be booked by a member of that club and lodge, and as such, would not be considered a commercial meeting facility. However, there was a complaint from a neighbor recently stating that the building was being used as a commercial meeting facility or an event center rather than the approved club and lodge use. And a building inspector verified and that is the use that was occurring on the site as a commercial meeting facility and not a club and lodge use. So at that point, orders were issued notifying the applicant that that was not a permitted use. So they came in and applied for the use variance to allow them to officially operate as a commercial meeting facility. So at the previous hearing, we outlined essentially the fact that while the commercial meeting facility is not permitted, a use variance is required in order to operate that. And in a historic district, the zoning relief standards that must be met for a use variance is either that it must be in the interest of historic preservation or that the property would not be viable for any of the permitted uses in the district. So in staff's opinion, this project as a commercial meeting facility is in the interest of historic preservation because primarily the building has an existing viable business in it, and it is, it will not require any work on the building, either interior or exterior, in order to continue that business. A eating and drinking establishment would be permitted in this district, and event centers are often, operated in a similar manner to the eating and drinking uses. Typically, the primary concern for commercial meeting facilities, when zoning relief is involved, is a lack of parking. Because these meeting facilities typically have a larger demand for parking because multiple people are arriving at the facility at the same time, rather than an eating and drinking establishment, which has people coming and going throughout their operating hours. However, in this district, it is both a transportation designation in the zoning code as well as within an urban parking overlay. So there is no parking that is required for the use. And in addition to that, there are several large parking facilities in short walking distance of this building that can provide the parking that is needed for the use, including the former Kroger surface parking lot to the east, the Mercer garage to the southeast, and the Washington Park garage to the southwest. So within this district, residential uses are prevalent throughout the block. However, the majority of the block is zoned commercial, with the exception of the northern half of the block to the north of this facility, which is a residential multifamily district. So this area is a dense urban environment with many other commercial uses in the vicinity, including eating and drinking establishments along the same block. The building was previously used for office use and indoor storage, and the applicant has argued that those uses are no longer viable. Generally, staff would agree that that is likely the case, as the market for office uses has not been strong, especially post-COVID, and indoor storage uses are not permitted in this district, nor are they desired, as they have generally provide no additional activity on the street that will help keep that area activated. So for those reasons, staff does find that in general, this project is in the interest of historic preservation, as it allows the continuation of a viable business with no alterations to the building. As far as the letters of opposition that were received, there were several from nearby property owners. The complaints generally related to traffic, noise, and trash storage within the alley area. The applicant did submit a standard operating procedure document that addressed each of those three issues. So as far as traffic, the applicant has noted that they are aware that this stretch of Republic is a residential parking permit only area, and when an event is booked by a member, the applicant sends parking instructions to the person that booked the event, noting the parking restrictions along Republic and outlining the locations of the three garages that surround the building. They also have recently installed a loading zone directly in front of the building for loading and unloading to help relieve congestion and allow vehicles to pull into that loading area so the street is not blocked. As far as driveways for the residential properties that are nearby, the applicant has stated that the driveways are monitored during events, and if a vehicle is found to be blocking a driveway, an announcement is made in the facility noting the vehicle that is blocking the driveway and asking if that vehicle belongs to anyone in the facility, that they do move the car. For trash, it is currently stored in the alley directly behind the facility. The alley is gated at both ends, and this is the same condition that many other of the commercial establishments on both Race Street and Republic utilize. So there are trash receptacles within that alley for many businesses along this stretch. The applicant does have a policy to collect trash inside the facility during events and only take the trash to the outside dumpsters during approved hours. And then as far as noise is concerned, there are windows and doors on the front of the building. They are typically not opened per the applicant. However, they do open them from time to time. Staff recommends that when those windows and doors are open, that they be closed by 10 p.m. at the latest. The applicant is agreeable to that, as that does follow generally what they typically do with these windows. Bar service ends within the facility at 10:15 when they have events, and the facility as a whole closes at 11 p.m. So there are no patrons left after 11 p.m. They also have an internal sound system with a sound limiter and decibel readers that help to control the noise levels. There's no external sound systems allowed to be brought into the facility with the bookings. They must use the in-house system. The decibel readers are located at the interior as well as the exterior at Republic Street, Goose Alley, and in the park to the north. And those decibel readers, they have routine checks to make sure the noise levels are staying within the city municipal code allowances. They also have rope barriers and signage outside the doors directing patrons away from residential areas. So staff finds that generally those policies are substantial to control adverse effects and are more than most policies that you would find at a typical eating and drinking establishment. So in summary, essentially the commercial meeting facility use was not permitted at this site. The applicants intended to operate as a club and lodge. It is staff's feeling that the way that the applicants have operated, it was their belief that they were falling within the lines of that club and lodge use. However, based on how the city considers a commercial meeting facility, that it does not fall within that definition the way that it has been operated. So the applicant is making a good faith effort to come in and get the correct approvals that are necessary to continue operation. So if the use variance is ultimately approved, the applicant will need to submit a new application for a new certificate of occupancy. That certificate of occupancy would undergo review both by zoning as well as building plan exam. So any issues with occupancy, fire requirements, and egress would all be handled when the new CO application is in through the building code review. So with that all being said, staff did and continues to recommend the board take the following actions. Approve the use variance for proposed commercial meeting facility use in the CC-P-T zoning district with the conditions that the doors and windows shall be closed no later than 10 p.m. and that the noise level shall comply with the noise ordinance in section 909-3 of the Cincinnati Municipal Code.
Thank you very much. I know we have the applicant. Were you here when we did the swearing in, or do you need to be sworn?
I should be sworn in.
You just raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, if you could identify yourself and then add anything you would like to tell us today.
I'm Jeremy Moore. I'm the owner of the business. I don't have too much to add. If there are others who wanted to come and speak, happy to add context or answer any questions that people may have.
At this point, are there any questions for the applicant or staff?
Just a quick question. It's probably in there, but Mr. Owen, how many square feet is this?
Approximately 3,000, maybe 30,000,
1,000.
somewhere in that range.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board at this point? We do have, I believe, at least one member of the public signed up. Mr. Andrew, is that Schaefer? If you want to just, I guess we've identified you as Andrew Schaefer. If you'd like to add anything you'd like to tell us today.
I'm at 1418 Ray Street, so right behind it. And so I know last time we came, I know Gregory Highland talked about like property values and like getting those estimates on, the diminishing, essentially, kind of the loss of equity in our property value. So I think that's my big concern is that we're trying to invest in the community. And, if we're fighting against decisions that are lowering our property value, that does make it hard to, want to stay in that area.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else signed up. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this item? Yes, you may come forward. Were you sworn earlier?
I was, yeah.
Okay, great. Come forward and please identify yourself.
Hi, I'm Ro Pitstick. I live at 1811 Elm Street. I walk by here really regularly, and I've been to one event here. It was a jazz band. And I think this is exactly the type of business that you want in this area. You notice it when you're supposed to. I've never passed by when it's overly loud. I think all of the restrictions they laid out make perfect sense, but I was there with friends, and it's like one of the businesses that makes Over the Rhine an awesome place and just an enjoyable, but still peaceful on Republic Street. So that's my observation of it, and I would encourage you guys to approve it because it's a great addition to the community.
Anyone else? Are there any additional questions by the board for applicant or staff? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the zoning relief for 1415 Republic Street as laid out by staff.
I'll second.
And the certificate of appropriateness.
I think it's just zoning. Okay, I have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Mr. Zalasko?
Aye.
Ms. Smith Dobbins?
Aye.
Mr. Thunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Young? The chair votes aye. Okay, we also have staff approvals on the agenda. Are there any questions for the board on staff approvals? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the staff approvals.
Second.
Call the roll. Mr. Zalasko? Ms. Smith Dobbins? Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I believe that is all. Is there any other business today that I am not aware of?
Not that I know of.
Okay, that being said, I would entertain a motion regarding adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?